The Roman Empire lasted so long that when it began, the pyramids of Giza were still considered new, and by the time it ended, those same pyramids were ancient history. Rome's story spans over 1,000 years, a civilization that shaped the modern world from law to language. It began as a muddy village on the Tiber and became the Mediterranean's heavyweight champion, only to lose it all in spectacular fashion. At its peak, Rome stretched from Scotland to Mesopotamia, building roads, aqueducts, and a legal system that still echoes today. But for all its grandeur, Rome was fragile. Its ambition and complexity sowed the seeds of its own collapse. The rise and fall of Rome is the ultimate lesson in how to build an empire, and how not to keep one. Rome's origin story is wild. Twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, sons of Mars, the god of war, abandoned as infants and left to die by the river Tiber. But fate had other plans. Instead of perishing, the twins were discovered and nursed by a she-wolf, who became their unlikely guardian. This legendary wolf, known as the Capitoline wolf, is now immortalized in Roman art and sculpture, symbolizing the fierce and protective spirit that would come to define Rome itself. As the boys grew up, they became natural leaders, gathering followers and dreaming of founding a city that would leave a mark on history. But sibling rivalry got the better of them. A heated argument over where to build their new city escalated into tragedy. Romulus killed Remus in a fit of rage. With his brother gone, Romulus named the city after himself, and thus, Rome was born in both ambition and bloodshed. This myth set the tone for Rome's identity, fueled by ambition, shaped by violence, and destined for greatness. The story of Romulus and Remus became a powerful symbol, echoing through Roman culture and inspiring generations. But if we peel back the legend, the real story is more down to earth. Rome likely began as a cluster of humble Latin villages perched on the hills beside the Tiber River. The location wasn't chosen by fate or gods, but for practical reasons: fertile land for crops, easy access to water, and a strategic position for trade and defense. The tale of Romulus and Remus was probably crafted centuries later, giving Rome an epic origin story to rival those of Greece and other ancient civilizations. It was a way to explain Rome's rise and to inspire pride in its people. In truth, early Rome was just one of many small city-states scattered across the Italian peninsula, surrounded by powerful and often hostile neighbors. Life was tough, and survival depended on alliances, warfare, and clever leadership. The first kings of Rome weren't emperors or legendary heroes. They were more like tribal chieftains, leading their people in battle, settling disputes, and performing sacred rituals to keep the gods on their side. Yet from these modest beginnings, Rome's relentless ambition and adaptability would eventually transform it from a small settlement into one of the greatest superpowers the world has ever seen. Rome started small, just a cluster of huts on the banks of the Tiber River, surrounded by forests and marshes. In these humble beginnings, a handful of tribes struggled for survival, forging a community that would one day shape the world. What truly set Rome apart was its disciplined, adaptable army and relentless drive to expand. Roman soldiers trained hard, learning to fight as a unit, and their ability to adapt tactics made them a force to be reckoned with. The Roman legion was more than just a fighting force. It was a military machine, organized and efficient. Legionaries didn't just conquer, they built. Roads, forts, and bridges sprang up wherever they marched, helping Rome control and connect its growing territories. Rome's republic, run by elected officials and the powerful Senate, expanded through a series of wars. The Punic Wars against Carthage were especially brutal, but victory gave Rome control of the Mediterranean, turning it into a true superpower. But with expansion came new problems. Wealth poured in, but it wasn't shared equally. Powerful generals gained loyal armies, and the city was rocked by civil wars, riots, and political intrigue. The very success that made Rome great also threatened to tear it apart. Julius Caesar's meteoric rise and dramatic assassination marked the end of the Republic. In the chaos that followed, his adopted heir Augustus emerged victorious, transforming Rome from a republic into a mighty empire ruled by emperors. Under Augustus and his successors, Rome reached its peak. The empire stretched from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to the Middle East, ruling over 50 to 90 million people, a quarter of the world's population at the time. For 2 centuries, the Pax Romana brought relative peace and stability. Trade flourished, cities grew, and Roman law and culture spread across 3 continents, binding together a vast and diverse empire. The empire became a thriving economic zone, connecting people, goods, and ideas from distant lands. Roman roads and sea routes made travel and communication faster than ever before, fueling prosperity and innovation. From a village founded on fratricide and legend, Rome grew into the Western world's greatest empire, leaving behind monuments, laws, and ideas that still shape our lives today. But as Rome grew larger and more complex, the cracks began to show. Corruption, overextension, and internal strife slowly eroded the foundations of its power. The relentless hustle that built Rome into an empire would also test its limits, setting the stage for new challenges and the eventual decline of a civilization that once ruled the known world. Before emperors ruled, Rome's Senate was the true center of power, a gathering of elite patricians who shaped the fate of the Republic. These senators weren't just lawmakers, they were the ultimate decision-makers, controlling Rome's finances, foreign policy, and military campaigns. Imagine a group chat where only the wealthiest and most influential voices could speak, and every major decision had to pass through their hands. The Senate was an exclusive club, an oligarchy, not a democracy. To even be considered, you had to be rich enough to work for free since senators weren't paid. This meant only the upper crust of Roman society could participate, and their interests often came first. This system created a powerful political class that was frequently out of touch with the everyday struggles of ordinary Romans. The divide between the Senate and the people led to constant tension, protests, and sometimes even riots in the streets. Ambitious generals like Julius Caesar saw opportunity in this unrest. Their personal armies and popularity with the masses allowed them to challenge the Senate's authority, sparking civil wars that would eventually shatter the Republic. When Augustus rose to power, he understood the importance of appearances. He kept the Senate around as a ceremonial body, letting them pretend to govern while he made the real decisions behind the scenes. In truth, the emperor now held absolute authority. The Senate's role was reduced to approving whatever the emperor wanted, turning them into little more than a rubber stamp for imperial policies. The transition from republic to autocracy was surprisingly smooth, but the memory of shared power lingered. The Senate's former influence haunted Rome's politics for generations. As the Senate faded into the background, its decline became a symbol of Rome's transformation, from a state built on collective rule to one dominated by a single, all-powerful ruler. With emperors in charge, Rome's fate depended on whoever wore the crown. Augustus set the gold standard, ending civil wars, reforming government, and launching the Pax Romana. But not all emperors were great. Nero, infamous for extravagance and cruelty, became the symbol of absolute power gone wrong. Succession was chaotic, sometimes hereditary, sometimes by adoption, often by force, leading to instability and civil war. Yet the empire also saw brilliant rulers like Trajan, Hadrian, and Marcus Aurelius, who expanded borders and promoted philosophy and civic duty. The 5 good emperors showed the system could work, if the right person was in charge. But Rome's stability always rested on the character of one man, a risky gamble for any empire. When the system failed, chaos followed. The emperor's personality could make or break the world's greatest power. By the 3rd century, Rome hit a wall. The crisis of the 3rd century brought 50 years of chaos, with dozens of emperors rising and falling, often violently. Civil wars drained resources and the economy collapsed as emperors debased the currency, causing runaway inflation and breaking down trade. Meanwhile, new threats emerged: barbarian invasions from the north and a resurgent Persian Empire in the east. Rome was no longer expanding. It was fighting desperately to hold its borders. Drastic reforms followed. Diocletian split the empire in two, and Constantine moved the capital to Constantinople and embraced Christianity. These changes stabilized things for a while but made the division permanent. The unified Roman world was gone. The empire survived, but it was never the same. The seeds of Rome's final fall had been sown. Barbarian was Rome's word for outsiders, but by the late 4th century, these outsiders were inside the empire's borders. Germanic groups like the Goths, fleeing the Huns, crossed into Roman territory, sparking disaster when mistreated by corrupt officials. The Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD saw the Goths crush a Roman army and kill the emperor, a turning point. Rome's army, now filled with mercenaries, struggled to maintain control. In 410 AD, the Visigoths sacked Rome, shattering the myth of the eternal city's invincibility. More territory slipped away. Vandals took North Africa, Britain was abandoned, and Germanic kingdoms rose in Gaul and Spain. The Western Empire became a hollow shell, its emperor powerless outside his palace. The end was near. By the late 5th century, the Western Roman Empire was a zombie, an empire in name only, run by Germanic generals. In 476 AD, Odoacer deposed the last emperor, Romulus Augustulus, and sent the imperial insignia to Constantinople, ending the charade. The fall wasn't a single event, but the result of centuries of decline, barbarian invasions, economic collapse, and endless civil wars. Only the western half fell. The Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantium, thrived for another 1,000 years. The West fragmented into Germanic kingdoms, but the East preserved Roman law, culture, and Christianity. 476 AD marked the end of one chapter, not the whole story. Rome's legacy was about to take a new form. The fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD shattered Europe's unity. Roads crumbled, cities shrank, and trade routes vanished. Roman administration was replaced by feuding Germanic kingdoms, and Europe entered the age of feudalism. Latin splintered into the Romance languages and local identities replaced Roman citizenship. Amid the chaos, the Christian Church thrived, preserving Latin, learning, and a sense of unity. Monasteries became centers of education, copying ancient texts and keeping knowledge alive. The fall of Rome ended the ancient world and began the Middle Ages, but its influence endured. Roman law, language, and ideas shaped the new Europe, inspiring future leaders and even the European Union. Rome's story is a lesson in history's cycles. Empires fall, but their ideas can last forever.